we are responsible for doing fire safety inspections, not only recurring inspections, which most people are aware of, but prior to every business opening, we are required to do a fire safety inspection. We are required to do fire safety inspections on most building construction. So I have a lot of duties that I have to juggle. And vegetation complaints is one of them, and we will follow up on every complaint. The question is, in what time frame?
What is, I've got a house that I bought from him. All these junipers. So, I mean, is it your recommendation that you get rid of them or not?
Well, that's going to depend. We actually have a subdivision in the city of Reno that requires you to have junipers on your property.
Really?
They do not.
We actually moron.
We actually got a complaint from that homeowners association when we run our Junk the Junipers campaign. We tell people they're dangerous. They've actually called to complain to us that we're misrepresenting the juniper. And we scratch our head. We know what we're doing with. Yes, my recommendation as a fire safety professional is that you should find a different planting. I'm not saying you should just strip them out and have nothing there. What I recommend is go to livingwithfire.info and you will find a link to recommended plants. And I would recommend that you replace your junipers over time. I don't know how many you're dealing with, but I wouldn't say try to do it all in one season.
$20,000 job.
Yeah. My best recommendation really is just to remove the ones adjacent to the structure.
Right.
If they're 20 feet out, you're probably okay unless it's a 15, 20-foot juniper.
Right.
We plant them all over the place because they make great windbreaks. They flush out real nice. The problem is they just burn like crazy. So yeah, up against your house, I would definitely recommend finding a different vegetation to take its place.
Okay.
Because what will happen is if one of those small junipers, and this is what people don't realize, the little bitty juniper really is almost equivalent to about a 5-gallon gas can. So when it starts on fire, its flame length, normal vegetation, flame length is double the size of the vegetation. So if I have a 3-foot juniper, I have a 6-foot flame length. So now I'm up into the eave of the house. The eave of the house, once it starts on fire, will allow it to run the attic. And that's the problem we run into. Most homes don't have fire breaks in their attic. Yes, sir?
Does that hold for Ruger pines, bushes that are?
I'm going to tell you, I'm not fond of any evergreen on a house, even if it's not a juniper. The reason being is just by their nature, they burn well. The sap burns well. That's a big problem we have in forest fires. So we don't deal with forest fires here, clearly. But up in the Sierras, a fire will actually do what we call crowning. It'll run up a tree. We're protecting the ground. It'll run along the tree tops. And sometimes we can't see it from the ground. So even though there's no fire down here, it's running on the top. So yes, I would say if you have any kind of evergreen underneath the eave of your home, I would seriously consider replacing that with a vegetation that's more fire resistant. What she showed you is a photograph of a juniper hedge in place of a fence. It extends out in the front yard all the way clearly going back between
all the way between my house and the neighbor's house.
If it's on the property, the best that you can do is trim it to the property line. You have that right to trim it if it extends on your side, but I can't order them to remove it. The best we can do, and which we will try to do, is contact the owner that actually has the plants and notify them of the danger. And that's the best that we can do. In the city of Reno, if you call me with a complaint, I send a registered letter to the property owner. I have to give them 30 days to do something. If they fail to do anything in 30 days, I must post the property for 30 days. So now we're 2 months. If that fails, I can then order a bank. I have to go before city council, get funds because they weren't originally budgeted, and get council approval. So you can figure that from the time you call me and the time I agree with you that there's a problem, we're looking at 2.5, 3 months, and then I still have to get city council to agree for me to clear the land and then lien the property. So that's the process we deal with. Fortunately, most of the time, the first letter does the trick. we get compliance. And that's what we're looking for, and that's what you want. You want a safe neighborhood, we want you to have a safe neighborhood.
Laws for the Committee's Water Authority. If you're new and you haven't looked at their website, they have a large pamphlet on the types of bushes and trees that grow best. In this, you can find those kinds of things that grow best here and the least amount of fire threat.
And they're also a good, for those of you that are new, they're a great asset. They will come out and evaluate your watering pattern for your vegetation, so that you don't overwater and create a situation. Well, it's from the Mills Water Authority. It's abbreviated by locals as TMWA, TMWA. They're your water authority, so if you get a bill, their website's on there. And they will be happy to work with you on your watering needs. Yes, ma'am, you had a question.
I want to know how we find out about current
A
fire.
lot of the local media maintain links, so if you check with any of the TV station websites, they'll have a link, they'll do live broadcasts.
Okay.
Fire is the big news thing today, so even the small fires get reported very quickly. I have the alert app from several of the news agencies, and usually they're right behind my radio dispatch, so.
Okay. You mentioned lightning rods are not required,
That's right.
but are they difficult to put up, and do you?
As I've seen, are
recommend we
pretty
get-
well exposed. They're mounted to the roof, and then they run a ground line down. I don't think they're that difficult to put up, and there's nothing in the code prohibits them. If you live in an area that's prone to lightning, and
Last
almost everyone
night
in Reno is,
made me
yes.
feel like.
I think they're a great idea.
Okay.
And I will tell you that some of our high-rise buildings have them, but not all. And I was a downtown inspector for 10 years. That's my forte, which is why it's kind of ironic I'm doing the wildland urban interface talk. I'm the high-rise guy. I think it's really good insurance, especially if you live out on the perimeter of the city. That's where we get most of our lightning strikes here in Reno. If you live in any of the rural areas, I think they're probably a good idea. I don't know what the code requirements are. I don't know if the building code has a way on it. You'd have to contact the building department with that. But I think they're a great idea. Yes, sir.
On that same line there with the lightning rods, I have I guess it's what we call it, a concrete roof or whatever they make it out of now.
Right.
Would the lightning affect that? Would it still cause a fire if it hits that? Would it actually go?
You know, the house I went to had a composite roof. I would think, just to be honest with you, cement is conductive. A lot of people don't realize that. That's why if you go to a gas pump, the pumps or your pump islands are on a cement pad, it will conduct electricity. The problem is it's not grounded to anything, and so it's gonna get in there, it's gonna chase whatever it needs to find ground. So yes, I believe your cement tile roof probably will conduct electricity because cement is by nature conductive.
Okay, when you said about the window treatment, what about vinyl shutters? Are they flammable? Do you need to open them? What do you do with vinyl shutters?
Vinyl's a tricky question. It will melt. Once it melts, it can give off a combustible vapor. Then it will burn. The problem is if it's closed, it takes all that heat right there at the window. So by opening it, we allow that radiant heat, just like the sunlight, to come into the room and then dissipate through the house. The volume of your house will absorb that heat and let it just warm things. But if you block it right at the window, it's going to generate a lot of heat right there. It's going to melt those blinds, put off a combustible vapor, and yes, possibly ignite.
So you should open them?
Should open them.
Okay.
Any window to the wildland side should be fully open to allow that heat to come in and dissipate throughout the house.
This website that you had, the Living with Fire?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that something that you usurped from some other place, or is that local? Do you stand behind everything you recommend there, like the?
Yes, ma'am. Living with Fire is part of the University of Nevada, Reno's Cooperative Extension Institute. They provide fire safety information throughout the West Coast. In fact, they have a magazine called Living with Fire. They produce different versions. There's one version for the slopes, there's one version for the plains down here in the valley. And so, yes, you go there and they'll direct you. Tell them, you'll see links to different parts of Washington County. They'll give you some advice specific to your area.
But there are things in there like put your garden hoses out, put your ladders out, turn on your lights, leave your home unlocked. Come on in.
Right.
And you stand by that? That's
Well-
what we should really do?
What happens is, here's how this works. First off, a lot of that information is based for more rural parts of the county, not necessarily the suburban parts of the county. But the garden hoses, our firefighters will bring a hose line, but you have to remember, our fire engines only carry a finite amount of water. If they're not hooked up to a hydrant, they run out. Oddly enough, and this is where people get a little confused, your garden hose actually provides enough water to do what it is we need to do, and that's keep your house cool and to keep the embers off your house, okay? If we put a structure protection team on your house, they are not going to try to put out the wildland fire. All they're gonna do is make sure the things in your yard and your house do not catch on fire. That's what they're gonna do, that's structure protection. The leaving the house unlocked part is in case we do see fire in your house, we don't have to break a door to get to it. That's entirely your option. It's not a rule, it's a recommendation. Leaving the ladders out, that's so that we can just pop your ladder up and get up on top of the house. It's not a requirement. We have ladders on the engines and we'll bring them in. So if you leave and you don't leave any of that out, we'll do the best we can with what we bring. It just helps us not have to strip the engine, because the engine may have to shift quickly. If the fire shifts, that structure protection scheme may need to shift. If we've laid out a bunch of our fire hose and we have to move in a hurry, we'll disconnect it and leave it. But now we don't have that much hose when we get to the next spot. So those are recommendations, they are not requirements. If you're not comfortable, then by all means, do what you are comfortable with. What we usually do in a large open space like that borders residential is we try to get them to clean between 10 and 15 feet from the fence line.
That would be awesome.
And what happens there, it does two things. First off, it minimizes direct flame impingement. Can't stop embers because that's a mile. But I can stop direct flame impingement to your fence. And it allows us a space to get in and work so we can work that wildland fire. So we can't put a hand crew right behind your house. The fact that you have a gate would be really important for us to know, because then we would get your permission to go through and start right there. Respiratory protection. I'll change the term we use, but basically the masks that you see people wearing during fires. The first thing I want to tell you is that the Reno Fire Department actually doesn't issue any masks. Some of our guys buy them, but we have not yet found one that we are satisfied with its functionality. And in that case, a good HEPA filter mask is actually adequate. It will knock down the big stuff. If you're right on the fire line, you've got all the other byproducts of combustion. You have carbon monoxide and all the other nasty stuff that comes out of burning anything. And there aren't really masks that function for that. But for those of us not in that fire environment, what we're mostly worried about is the heavier particulate matter out of the smoke. And a HEPA mask, any good HEPA filter mask will work for that. If you have any kind of respiratory issue, then I would recommend, you can't see inside, get a good HEPA mask, the surgical masks, and wear one of those. The white masks are probably not HEPA certified. We get a different mask for those of us from medical that is HEPA certified, that will keep almost anything out. And I have actually worn those inside structure fire scenes during investigation. And they help immensely, although they're not protecting you from all the bad stuff, just the heavy particulates.
I'd like your opinion on the following. For those of us who live in a common interest community that has common property, would it be a recommendation to contact the board through the management company and to request a fire evaluation of your common community or the common interest community and the common property, and find out what condition that community is really in with regard to fire?
You know, it's never a bad idea, especially in the common property situation. We deal a lot with apartment fires, and any fire in any one unit affects more than one tenant. If we have a fire in the common area, it has a propensity to affect the other buildings. I would recommend, when you do that, reaching out to Living with Fire. They actually do those. A couple of their people are qualified to do that. No one in Reno Fire is qualified to do that. How many of you live in the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District? Okay, in your case, Truckee Meadows does have personnel that are certified to do those evaluations. So your association can reach out to them, and they would be happy to provide that service for you, either one of their firefighters. Yes, sir.
Let me just follow up by saying, we did that in 2012 in our community, and the fire department found 3 areas in priority of a true fire threat. The fire would go through the common canyon and burn the houses on both sides. So what we did is we started a program in our community, and we allocated funds out of the budget to attack those fire threats in priority. And we've been doing that since 2012. And we take about 5 acres a year.
Yeah, and see, and that's very proactive. Again, 2 types of fire. One is one that runs the fuel load, which is independent of wind, and the other is the wind-driven event. In Collin and Washoe, we had a combination because we did have the fire running canyons, and then that would burn fences and outbuildings next to the canyon, and then we had the ember issue. So if we can minimize one of those methods of moving a fire by changing our vegetation, that's a great help, because most of our fires will not be wind-driven events. As you've seen, most of our fires, the ones today, they're just geography and vegetation deciding where those fires go. We get light winds that'll move them a little bit, but they won't blow embers. So if you live in an area that has a lot of common stuff, now I will tell you that if you're in the city of Reno, some neighborhoods have, as part of their SUP, a requirement that your homeowners association, well, the builder had to provide a fuels management plan, and the homeowners association is bound to maintain that plan. In the last 2 years, for all the new communities going in, and you know, we've got them going everywhere, all the new communities are what we call wildland urban interface. And so there's a state law that requires that the state forester has a fire warden that has to review their landscaping plans. And we in the Reno Fire Department have told them we will not accept their landscaping plans until they have been so reviewed, and I get a letter that says that they meet the standard of the wildland urban interface code. Up until a few months ago, I actually did review all submissions for new subdivisions, and that was a standard requirement on every subdivision. They had to take their landscaping plans, especially common area, to the state. And I had to have a fuels mitigation plan for all the common area behind the houses. Anything that was going to be turned over to the homeowners association that was a fire barrier, they had to have a fuels mitigation plan, so that the homeowners association was clearly responsible for keeping it clear of weeds and other growth that wasn't part of the landscaping plan. And that helps to provide that fire break for those fuel-driven fires. Any other questions? Yes.
I've often wondered about the fencing actually starting on fire, because we were near the hospital a couple months ago, where that's where our house is, and the embers were coming into the yard. Doubt that's going to start the fencing on fire, but I see a lot of fencing that's heavily dried out, and that's, to me,
We have had fencing burn. The nice thing about fencing, the fence that on the back has a broad area, and it's going to become involved in the fire if there's fuel adjacent. That's why we talked about 15-foot clear space outside your property if you're on wildland. The thing is in order to come back to your house, it's got to burn on that side fence, and that is a slow process. Now, in the city of Reno, many years ago, we changed our SUPs, and people that live adjacent to or back on wildland can't have a combustible fence. They actually can't even have a solid fence. They have to have, it's essentially a wrought iron open fence. And it serves 2 purposes to us. One, it does eliminate that fuel issue. The fence can no longer become involved. And second, we can sit in the backyard and spray water right through that fence. We don't have to water it over the top. We can see the fire right there and we can keep it away. An unintended consequence is it also keeps homeowners from dumping their equipment right over their fence. I had a complaint once. Property owner called to complain about a big field. And I went out and I looked at the field. I walked the fence line. I got behind the property owner's house, and everything else was natural vegetation except behind their house, where all the clippings from their rose bushes were. And their last 2 Christmas trees were back there too. They were the only neighbor, by the way, that had a fence going into that vacant lot. So I called them and advised them that there was in fact a fire hazard, and I'd be advising the property owner of the vacant lot about the illegal dumping going on. Took care of that problem. They stopped dumping back there.